Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to DuneTube 2019. This is a BookTube event that I'm doing with a bunch of other BookTubers where we go through the Dune novels of Frank Herbert, one a month from July until December. And I'm doing an actual read-along of these books. It's going to be a little abbreviated today. Very sorry about that. But we are up to the penultimate book in the series. This is Heretics of Dune. And we are in this series dealing with something that was vaguely hinted at in the previous book, God Emperor of Dune. God Emperor of Dune takes place over a few days, over a few months. The events of the novel take place over a few months, but they take place 3,500 years after the events in the previous book, Children of Dune. And in that whole time has been ruled by one figure, Leto II, who is becoming a sandworm. So he's not human. He's lived that whole time, and he has an ironclad grip, militarily speaking, over the whole of his empire because he has such prescience. He has an unbelievable ability to foresee where his enemies will be, where they'll strike, where he needs to be to preempt them. And it's allowed him to stay in power and consolidate his power. And God Emperor of Dune ends with that all ending, with him dying. In a way that still bothers me. I reread God Emperor of Dune for this read-along, and I still don't know what to make of it completely. I loved it. I love it more every time I read it, but I don't know what to make of it. But one of the things that Leto predicted in the course of that novel was that when Leto's peace, his ironclad peace, was broken, long famine times would come. Hard, horrible times for humanity would come, where many, many humans, already thousands and millions of humans, have fled Leto's peace out into the scattering, far away from his imperial control. And more would follow in the famine years, and it would become disastrous. People would be at each other's throats. A lot of the regular power structures of Leto's empire would fall apart, and the ones that remained, the Bene Tleilaxu, the technological planet of Ix, the Spacing Guild, most especially the Bene Gesserit, a society of super nuns, they would have to fend for themselves and make strange alliances and live, and they do. Heretics of Dune takes place 1,500 years after the end of God Emperor of Dune, and all of those societies are still in place, and they are still at war with each other, still engaging in all sorts of Byzantine machinations against each other. And that's largely what we get in this book. As you can see, this is the old, what is this? The old... This is the old Berkeley trade paperback from 30, 40 years ago. And you can see on the cover a figure dancing in front of a sandworm. The sandworms have returned to Dune, and the figure dancing in front of them is Shiana, who's a young woman who has come to the Bene Gesserit's attention, who lives on the planet Arrakis, that used to be Arrakis, that used to be Dune, and appears to be able to communicate with the sandworms. They seem to be willing to do her bidding, which wouldn't have been possible before. All of the sandworms on Dune now are descendants of Leto II. They're descendants of the God Emperor. And they have little jewels, little kernels of his sentience in them. So they're not just dumb animals anymore. And Shiana is able to communicate with them. And there seems to be a plan in foot with the Sisterhood, with the Bene Gesserit, to forge a connection between her and their latest Gola, their latest clone of Duncan Idaho, a character who has been, by this point, cloned over and over again for many thousands of years. The latest clone appears to have alterations worked into it by the Bene Tleilaxu. The Bene Gesserit do not have command of the Bene Tleilaxu's axolotl tanks or their cloning technology. So they're not 100% sure what's going on, but they sense a threat. They sense a gathering threat, not only with the Gola and the Bene Tleilaxu, but also with the honored matres, an enormous group of women who are kind of a dark mirror parody of the Bene Gesserit themselves. It's an all-female sisterhood built on sexual hypnosis and raw violence, and they have come in from the scattering. They are new to the old worlds of the Imperium, and they are a new threat. The sisterhood, the Bene Gesserit, has to deal with them. And all of these factors in the chapters that we're reading today are growing. They're all darkening. And the sisterhood has called out of retirement their old military commander, Miles Tegg, to help them deal with all of these things. And there are some amazing scenes, that very tense scenes between individual characters, in which all of those darkening clouds, all that growing tension, is heightened by being shown to us on a completely personal level. characters who have poison darts in their sleeves, who are having tense conversations with their opposite numbers and are ready to kill them if things go wrong. And characters who know that and are still willing to keep going. And there's a scene like that between a Bene Tleilaxu master and a member of the Honored Matres. And there's a corresponding scene in the chapters that we're reading today between that same character and the Bene Gesserit Reverend Mother Superior. Reading the two scenes side by side is enlightening. I'm rereading this for, it's been years since I read Heretics of Dune, and I'm noticing parallels like that because I'm meant to, obviously, because Herbert wants me to notice those things. But that's what I want to keep this fairly short so that it doesn't take me until 2 a.m. to upload. That's where we are today. Is that the Bene Tleilaxu and the Bene Gesserit are warily circling each other, probing for weaknesses and maybe hinting at unprecedented alliances in the face of the growing threat from these Honored Matres, who aren't sophisticated. They are blunt weapons, but there are a lot of them, and they're mighty effective blunt weapons. So I'm curious to know what you're making of this as you go along so far. The one complaint the main complaint that I've heard from people who have read this book at my behest is that to them it strikes them as a little plotless. And I'm wondering if you're thinking the same way, where it would seem to be going from scene to scene to scene, but the larger equations barely ever come to the surface, so that you don't so that you don't feel pulled along by one particular storyline. At the very least, the two main storylines that do any kind of pulling are completely separate from each other in the chapters that we're reading so far. The storylines of the Ghola and Shiana appear completely separate. And I'm curious to know if that's affecting your reading, or are you just happy to be back in this world? That is the feeling that I always get when I go to Heretics and Chapter House Dune. The feeling that I always get is just, I am so happy to be back in this world. It's just the way Herbert's writing. Herbert's writing gets better as he gets older. It gets better as he goes along. That's why I have very little patience with people who say, typically, oh yeah, I read the Dune books. Dune's great. Dune Messiah stinks. Children of Dune's a little bit better, and all the others suck. Again, I have very little patience with that. Usually when I hear someone say that, I know for a fact that they haven't read anything except Dune, and that they've only read Dune once and a long time ago. I don't find that to be true. I think that Herbert gets better and better as a writer with each book, so that even though I would be willing to admit that Heretics of Dune is a little bit light on a narrative through line, I'm not 100% sure that that's necessary. I know that's heresy for me to say of all people, but nevertheless, I'm not 100% sure that you need that. Not all the time. But it's amply compensated for because his individual scenes are so riveting that I can't stop reading. And I'm wondering if you felt the same way. When you're reading through the chapters that we read today, did you find yourself just compelled to keep going? I was reading them and thinking, especially since I'm in the middle of NaNoWriMo, I was reading them and thinking, this is exactly how you put a scene together. The balance between spoken dialogue and exposition, the precise balancing of pacing to up the tension and then to relax it and then to up it again, all in the same chapter. The limited and very effective use of description. I've been standing in awe of those things. That's been wonderful. As sort of an inadvertent tutorial for NaNoWriMo. But anyway, that's where we are for today. I want to wrap this up short. I will keep these will be longer next time. But I want to, we will go from where we ended today. The chapters aren't numbered in the Dune books. So we're going to read, roughly speaking, this is the trade paperback. In my version, it's page 319. But we're going to read to the chapter that starts with Odrade kept her gaze carefully away from the cool green of the quadrangle below her, where Shiana sat with one of the teaching sisters. So we're going to read that far ahead for next time in Heretics of Dune, and I will give you more attention. More attention when next time happens. I'm trying to keep today's videos under control. So I will wrap this up, but I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.